I'll be discussing the results of a digital survey, a digital trends survey that Cal has recently conducted. Now, this survey was sent out to all of our members to assess their experiences and views with digital publishing in Australia. The way the survey was designed, there was a general screening question which categorised people into being either a publisher, an author or a general Cal member. And depending on how you answered that question, you went down one of three routes. If you were a publisher, you answered 14 to 19 publisher-specific questions. If you were an author, you answered the same 14 to 19 questions, but from an author's perspective. Some of them were slightly different, but most were exactly the same, but just from an author's perspective. And if you're a general Cal member, you went straight to the bottom and you answered 15 general questions. So if you were a publisher or an author, you also then, after your 14 to 19 questions, you answered all those questions at the end. So there was a maximum of 34 questions, depending which group you identified with and which route you took. The response rate we were very happy with. There was over 2,000 people participated in the survey, and 1,826 got to the end, so 87% fully completed the survey. Some got part of the way through, but 87% fully completed the survey of over 2,000 who participated. So this is that first general screening question that I spoke about. Of all the questions we had, this was the one that was probably edited the most times. We went backwards and forwards. How can we ask it? How can we, get this question right? But what we went with was, which of the following best describes you? A publisher, which is a publisher of books, journals, magazines, etc., either print or digital. An author, and we did categorise as an author who makes an income or a partial income from their writing in either print or digital. Or general, which is any other Cal member. So if you don't fit into any of those two main categories, then you fit into the last one. And you can see the response rates there. So for the publishers, 19.3, so roughly 20% of people identified as publishers, roughly 60% as authors, and roughly 20% fell into the general category. So then we asked whether you publish standalone digital content. And what we meant by standalone digital content was content that was completely independent of print and completely independent of print revenue. So if you had a textbook, for example, and you bundle it with a CD, that would be considered a hybrid product. That's not a standalone digital product. So we're really just talking about ebooks, PDFs that you sell on your website, subscription services to websites, any digital content that's 100% digital, and you're getting all your revenue from that digital publishing. So 54% of publishers said that they do some form of ebooks or other digital products. And it was similar with the authors. They, 43% said they have written some form of ebook or other digital product. So you can see between those two there, they're, roughly half of authors and publishers are doing some kind of standalone digital publishing. So you're doing the publishing, but how much money are you actually making? A lot of people who've been digital skeptics have always said there's all this hype around digital, but look, no one's really making any money. It's generally less than 5% of people's revenue, if not even less. And our results did partially reflect that. If you look at the category of less than 5%, you've got 58.9% are saying they're making less than 5% of their overall income from digital. But that leaves 40% who are making more substantial amounts. The 5 to 15%, there's around 15% of people, 16 to 30%, another 7%, all the way down to there's, almost 14% of people are making more than half their revenue out of digital publishing. So I think that's an interesting result, and I think we do plan to do this survey over time. We do plan to repeat it annually, so I think as we go on, we'll find some really interesting longitudinal trends. And it's no surprise that the authors are the ones creating this digital content, so the money that they're making from digital is kind of pretty much the same. Slightly higher, close to 70% are saying they're making less than 5%, so sorry, slightly less overall. But you can see the other categories, fairly similar, slightly less overall compared to the publishers, but they're in the same ballpark. And that's one thing that I was struck with this survey overall, is that publishers' and authors' views were very similar. There was a handful of differences, and I'll point those out as we go, but overall, excuse the pun, but authors and publishers were on the same page, I think, when it came to digital publishing. We also asked, I should have also said at the beginning, I'll only be showing some of the results today. Today is sort of a sneak peek. Around a third of all the questions I'll be showing the results for, and within the next few weeks, all of these results will be on our website and available to all our members, so you'll have access to all of this data. So this question asks, if you answered that you don't publish digitally, well, why not? The most common response from publishers was just simply that it's not a priority. And the second most common response was that they lack the technical knowledge. And that was really a theme throughout the survey. A lot of the questions had answers relating to technical skills and do you need training, and that was a common theme that a lot of publishers said, a lot of authors and publishers said they do need improvement in that area. This is authors answering the same question. If you haven't written an ebook or digital product, why not? And again, the most common response was it's just not a priority. And the second most common response was that they lack the technical knowledge. So it's pretty similar there. Piracy. This is obviously a big issue when it comes to digital. So we had a couple of questions talking about piracy, and I'll just refer to the outcome for publishers here. So the question here is, which of the following best describes your views on piracy as it currently affects the overall revenue of your business? The most common response was it's not having any discernible impact. So 56.9% of people came up with that response. About 11% said that they'd seen pirated copies of their works online, but that this was not yet having any impact on sales. And then we've got the last two categories there, about 12.5% are saying it's either having a small effect or a significant effect. So 12.5% overall is a lot. You know, we would want that number to be as low as possible. And again, as digital takes off, a lot of people are predicting that piracy is going to take off. So we'll be watching this slide very closely as we go and repeat this survey again. Now we're talking about the benefits of digital publishing from a publisher's perspective. It's interesting that the overwhelming response, over 71%, said it came down to the bread and butter stuff of publishing, having lower printing costs, lower warehousing costs, less returns, etc. So they were really interested in those cost savings. But quite high as well was access to more customers and international markets, and also the ability to develop new and innovative products. And you'll see the benefits to authors were pretty similar. But for them, the number one was access to more readers and international markets. And that was a common trend throughout the survey as well. You can see there's other quite highly ranked things there. The speed at which projects can be brought to market, the ability to develop new and innovative products, and the ability to self-publish and sell content directly online. So they were all considered strong benefits of digital publishing. This was my personal favourite question, and I was a bit surprised by the results on this one. We asked whether publishers, which of the following describes your digital strategy as a publisher? The most common response, 32%, was that we're currently in the process of developing our digital strategy. And I was really shocked that, so 26% admitted straight out we just don't have a digital strategy. And I found that quite interesting. Our CEO, Jim Alexander, has a long background in market research, and he says this is like the lie detector test. If people answered this one honestly, you know that they're answering the whole survey honestly. And I think when 26% admit that you don't have a digital strategy, people are being pretty honest. And I reckon the ones who are saying that they're in the process of developing one really just don't have one. I'll leave that to your imagination. And just for your reference, the authors answered the same questions and the results, I've got that one. They were similar, but a lot more authors admit to not having a digital strategy. So over half are saying we're not sure where to go when it comes to digital. So the previous question was my favourite question. This question is the one I was most surprised by, because you'd hear so much about social media, so I'm talking about Facebook, Twitter, blogging, etc., and you hear about the important role that it plays for authors and publishers, but our results indicated otherwise, I think. So how important, so this is for publishers, how important a role does social media play in your activities as a publisher? We had 4-point scales here. We didn't want people to sit on the fence. There's benefits of doing that or not doing that. But as it turns out, the results were that people ended up sitting on the fence, even though there was no middle option for them to choose. If you look at the rating average, which is the second from the end there, it's 2.48. 2.5 means people were sitting exactly in the middle. So 2.48, they're pretty much sitting exactly in the middle. So for some it's important, for some it's not important, but overall they seem to be in the middle. And the one I was more surprised by was authors. For them, the most common response in terms of social media was that it's not important at all. We don't know if that's because they're relying on their publisher for those sort of activities and initiatives. We don't know the reason why, but it's interesting that you can see the results are bunched towards the end of thinking it's not important or it won't affect them. So that's an interesting one there.